Alright. Alright, so let's go over what we thought about this. So this was definitely my first time played. Did we do it spoiler free? No one spoiled anything. Everyone's really good. Like, I don't know if it's because people haven't played this game or the people that have experienced it were just like very courteous in that regard and just didn't say anything. But I really appreciate that. Alright, so the music for me. A lot of the tracks in this game were forgettable. A lot of the tracks were just different renditions of the same theme done again and again. Some of the dungeon themes were played multiple times in multiple dungeons, and I feel like the good music was just outweighed by the stuff that was forgettable. But there were still some really good tracks in here. I really enjoyed the battle theme, but then you got the last boss theme, which was kind of like, eh. It didn't even really feel like a last boss to me. I feel like the battles with the dragons and stuff like that were worse. If you didn't have to fight like 10 dragons in the game, then those fights would probably be the most epic for me. Especially because the music's just better. But I enjoyed it. It was still pretty solid for the PlayStation. In my mind, it's upwards of a 6 or a 7. And as you guys know, I tend to round stuff up. But I really feel like I said there's maybe 2 tracks from this game that I'm really, really going to remember that I really liked. So I'm going to give it a 6 in that regard. So graphics rating for the era. This one's a little bit difficult because they were like the first game to go full 3D. They didn't have painted backgrounds and things like that, which, don't get me wrong, those are really beautiful and really well done, especially in the Final Fantasy games and things like that. But it's one of the first games to take like that full 3D aesthetic. And like the towns and things like that and the dungeons themselves, they weren't bad. The problem is that camera perspective and changing it around and stuff like that, it's very disorienting and it makes it very easy to get lost. It was basically in its infancy, and because of that, it was just really hard to enjoy. And part of that might have been because I'm playing it so much later than like when it originally came out. But we can't deny that it did something. It was definitely a pioneer of its time. So I have to give it that. I'm going to dock a little bit of points just because the characters did not have faces. And that's just something that's really weird to me. For a game that has full-blown dialogue and like 90% of the game is going through text and reading and trying to figure out what's going on, for you to be staring at the NPCs and them not having faces, it's really awkward. Granted, they kind of made up for it by having a portrait pop up on occasion when a character talks, but even that wasn't something that was consistent throughout the game. Sometimes I didn't realize who was talking, because they would say the character's name, they would talk for a bit, but then the dialogue boxes would like switch left and right, and it was just hard to know who was talking sometimes. You kind of took from what the dialogue was saying who was talking. At least that was my experience with it. I don't know if you guys felt the same way. Maybe it was a little bit more obvious for you. But we have to give credit where credit is due, and I'm going to say that, you know, I've never been a huge fan of the whole 3D aesthetic on the PlayStation and stuff to begin with. Like, I don't like the blocky design and stuff like that, but it's what it was back then, and everything else about it was amazing. The anime cutscenes and stuff were great, really good. The portraits were really well done. I almost wish this game might have been, like, not full 3D. I feel like it would have been such a better game. Now, I don't know if they would have been able to do the combat the same way or anything else, but I kind of feel like the game just would have been so much better if they didn't go in that direction. So, again, I'm going to give this a 6. And, again, these points are primarily coming from the fact that it was the first system to really do what it wanted to do, or that no one else had done before, and we cannot deny that. Alright, so story rating. There wasn't really much of a story in this game. Yeah, basically you start out the game by somehow you're this guy that's got something on his arm that lets you do magical things, and you have to take this girl and raise these continents so that they don't hit the water. And then after a while the game just kind of like forgets that. Like, it's always like the main point of what you're supposed to do, but when you're going to lift the 4th continent, it's like that's not what's important anymore. Whether we raise them or not doesn't matter because it's eventually going to happen again. Which, you know, is a twist that's kind of done sometimes in games, but the way this one went about doing it was just a little bit frustrating. It almost seemed like it could have been like an epic finish where you just finally kept them raised for good, but then the game really opens up at the end. Like, everything starts to make sense, everything starts to get really interesting, and it's like, by that time, I just wasn't as invested as I could have been. I wasn't invested in the characters because they were just like these stereotypes. Like, they forced it into dialogue constantly that this character is the hero and good and would never hurt a fly, and this character is the tsundere, as like I was saying, however it's said, where they forced that with her personality constantly. Like, they didn't have to. They could have just had straight-on dialogue where she was just, like, you know, normally talking on occasion. But that's not how they wanted to do things. They wanted to keep it that you knew what type of character she was supposed to be. And that frustrated me a little bit. The game really picked up at the end, but it just wasn't enough to save it for me. It really wasn't. So I'm going to give that a 5. And again, I would have rated it lower. I was going to give it like a 3, but it started to get interesting at the end. It did start to pique my interest. I just wish it started more, not the last 15 minutes of the game. And also, the story rating kind of deserves some credit because it had the anime cutscenes in it that did some of the dialogue and stuff like that for it, so... Alright, so the mechanics. Now, we kind of talked about it when we talked about the graphics and things like that. Again, I see what they were going for with the battle system. I think that it's really unique for its time, and if I would have played it when I was younger, I would have probably enjoyed it and not thought anything of it. But playing it now, you can't deny the fact that it's pretty clunky, and the AI of the game's not really well programmed. It's basically programmed on your inputs. If you're a certain distance from it, the thing will only do certain attacks. It won't do anything else. If you're closer to it, it will only do certain attacks. If you're blocking, it will only do certain attacks. If you're attacking, it does specific attacks. So really, it was kind of just like getting to the right angle of an enemy so that you were able to hit them more often, or just running into them face first so that they got staggered for part of a second, and then doing 1 or 2 attacks, and then rinse, repeat. And that's what every fight kind of turned into. It was definitely something that I feel, again, if it was brought out a little bit later, a year or 2 later, when they had a better understanding of the systems and stuff like that, that it could have been really solid and really interesting for its time. Going into a fight when you're in the middle of a dungeon is a common occurrence for a JRPG. It's something that's definitely normal. But it's so weird in this game because it changes that camera angle, and then you're just like in this like 3D fighting game. And again, it's weird and it's interesting, but it was frustrating more than it was fun for me. And the few fights that I expected to be epic and stuff like that really weren't. And there was not a whole lot of enemies that were different. There was like basic guy with sword and shield that would block all of your attacks. Then basic big guy that blocked absolutely nothing, but if he hit you really hard. Then you had the dragons, and you had a couple interesting bosses. But it was not implemented well enough for me, just like Eltanin is saying here. And again, I realize that that's a product of its times, but I still feel if I played this as a kid, I would have preferred other games over this. I would have enjoyed it more, probably, if I was younger, and if I played it right when it came out. But I still would have enjoyed the games more that came out around the same time. In that regard, I'm going to give this a... It was gonna go really low for me, but I'm gonna give it a 4. I'm gonna say that because it gave me something new that I had felt never been done before around that time. It does deserve some credit. It just wasn't very well implemented. Okay, grinding. Not necessarily in this game. You gain no experience or anything like that. You can replenish your magic by fighting enemies and stuff like that, and you can occasionally get some healing items and things like that from them. It's potentially possible that you could get armor from them. I'm not sure. That might have been something that could have happened, but I didn't get anything. So overall, it didn't really require any grinding. So in that aspect, it gets a pretty high rating. I'm going to give it an 8, mostly because there was encounters that were forced, and you're fighting a lot of the same type of encounters for no reason whatsoever other than the fact that they're delaying your progression in the game. And that's really what the combat system overall was, in my opinion. So, overall rating. You know, this game wasn't bad. It frustrated me sometimes and things like that. It could be a pain, but it really wasn't. However, if we're talking of games that came around 1998 and stuff like that too, this game would not have been something that I would have been rushing to tell my friends to play about. It's not something that stuck with me as much as it might have somebody else. And that's where it kind of comes, the overall rating, no matter what I try and do, no matter how objective I try to be as possible, it's always going to be a subjective thing. Everyone's going to experience something differently or like different aspects of something. But overall, it wasn't a bad game. I'm glad I played it. I'm glad that I experienced it. And had I not had other RPGs to play at the time back then or anything else, and this was like the one and only thing that was out, I would have been content with it. But if I ever played those other games and things like that, this is just something that would have been overshadowed in my mind. It's not something that I feel I need to replay to get the other ending to see what's going to happen or something like that. I'm just not curious enough to go through it all again. Although I could just reload my save and make a different decision, but that's beside the point. I just don't think it has a lot of replay value, and I think overall it's just something that was a niche experience for the time. And I feel like it's been done better in the future, and even done slightly better in the past with just the non-3D elements to it. So I'm going to give it a 5, and I know that this is the lowest rating that I've given something, but I want people to understand that I don't think that this is a bad game. I really don't think that it's a terrible game. I just think that there are games that are more worth spending your time on. But if you've got, you know, if you're looking to play an RPG around this time frame that, you know, really messed with 3D at the time before it became a big thing, and just looking to experience something that doesn't quite hold up as well as some other JRPGs of the time, then give it a shot. But if you've got other things to play, I would say that you could probably let this one kind of go a little bit further down on your list. Alright. So, this is where I let you guys vote, and hopefully that works. And then after this, we'll do the raffle. In the meantime, while you guys are voting, I'll start fitting this stuff out. Replay value, no, this is not a game that I would replay. But I am glad that I played it. I'm glad that I got to see something like that. And this was by far the shortest game so far. I know who that one was. That one was probably Nakurdi. I didn't even see the one yet. Alright. Oh, that was you, Eric? What did you give it, Nakuri? A solid 4? A solid 2? Considering Quintet broke up before this game came out, I don't really think that that's the case. I need to add a date finished thing as well. That's something I need to go back through and look at. Let's get this set up a while. He didn't even want to vote, it was so bad. Alright. So I know we have less people around than we did yesterday, and I do feel bad for the people that are missing out because I planned to finish the game yesterday, but I got called into work early. But those of you that are here today, you're here, the game is done, and it's time to do the raffle. So hopefully you guys are excited for that. And it looks like here I can average this together pretty quickly. We got quite a few less votes. 15, 17, 25, 29, 29, 6, 7, 8, 3. Alright, so for you guys it's like about a 3.5 altogether. No, sorry, 4.5 I think altogether. That one's really skewing it though. The two ones rather. 15 plus 12. No, I was right. It's about a 3.5, 3.6. So, and I, like I said, I understand this. I feel like some of the people that would really like this game aren't here right now, and I can see aspects of this game that they do like, and I can see how, if I played this when I was younger, that I definitely would have enjoyed it more. But that being said, let's get to the raffle, guys. The moment all of you have been waiting for, I'm sure. Alright guys, if you want to enter the raffle, just press raffle. I think I've got a bot command for it, but I can't remember what it is. So, I'm just going to say it. Type the word raffle if you want to enter. Raffle. It's pretty good. Alright. It looks like everybody's in. I should have Jeopardy song theme. I was thinking about doing something with like the Final Fantasy battle music or something like that, and then have like as soon as the raffle finishes like a fanfare. But I'd have to get into programming that and making something like that happen. If you lose, it's rigged. Alright guys. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Congrats, Nakurti! Well, he won because when I started the raffle, I immediately didn't have it set to choose for a keyword, and he had said something right at that point in time, and I just had to reset it. Since then, I've learned that I have to reset it after I enter the keyword. Congrats, Nakurti! I think Nakurti's gonna go about entering the game himself since he has access to it. Well, didn't see that coming at all. The Nakurti. Alright guys, well, looks like we're playing Shining Force 2, although I definitely expected that after he won. So, we're gonna still start Skies of Arcadia here, because I want to stream for a bit yet. No, don't give it a rating. Don't push him. He's already done the thing, okay? So, Shining Force 2 will be after Skies of Arcadia. I'm not sure quite how long Skies of Arcadia is. But, let me get set up here. And we'll go from there. So, sorry, the setup might take a little bit. I tried to get as much set up as I possibly could prior,